If you don't know, I'm currently a 12th grader in high school. Being a senior has brought a lot of changes, from my schedule to my priorities. However, I'd wager that the number one change has been in how relatives and family friends interact with me. See, every single conversation goes like this. Hey Maya, how's it going? I mumble one or two sentences about how it's all good while they pretend to be interested. Then once I'm done, they nod sagely for all of 2 seconds before blurting out, so what are your college plans? The conversation inevitably turns to major, where I mention offhandedly that I'm interested in going into business. There's always a moment of shock where they realize that I'm not going to be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. But once that initial surprise has passed, they always ask me one question, and that's, what do business majors even do? What indeed? Public perception of business tends in the direction of, it's just fluff. People believe that beyond accounting and finance, there's not a lot to be learned in the business field as a whole. There's a big tendency to devalue soft skills, which are the core of most business majors. And they're also where I think a lot of the value is derived. See, a typical major may have a lot of content that needs to be processed and memorized. Business, instead, focuses on soft skills like problem-solving, communication, and awareness, skills that can then be applied to the real world in situations that need them. Today, I'm going to be illustrating the importance of business as a field by talking a little bit about some business skills and how they're relevant to organizational and individual success. First of all, problem solving. When you hear the word problem solving, your immediate thought might be something along the lines of math, science, or engineering. You might start thinking about knowing the formulas involved to solve a complex word problem. You may even see it as a more mastermind-ish undertaking, involving solving formulas and guessing motivations and strategizing to find hidden clues. In truth, problem solving is a lot more simple than that. It involves having an unknown, the solution, and taking into account what you know and what's available in your environment to figure out what that solution is. Of course, it's not that simple because it's not like the kind of basic math problems that you might solve at school, where you're directly given the information that you need to solve for this X. You have to collect all the information from your environment, take a look at it, and figure out what the problem is to even begin to figure out what the solution could be. In a lot of ways, problem solving is like pattern recognition. If you're facing a problem that you've seen a similar one of in the past, you can look at solutions and strategies that worked then and apply them to your current situation as well. To really illustrate that concept, I want to introduce you guys to a friend that I brought with me today. This is Bob. Bob is a professional magician, and he is a very good one, if he does say so himself. Everyone who's ever watched one of Bob's shows says that he is absolutely incredible at what he does. There's just one problem. His shows just aren't selling out. It's hard to see what this has to do with problem solving, despite the fact that we have a problem that we need to solve. I mean, we can't really change people's behavior. Is Bob just doomed to fail? Not necessarily. Let's take a bit of a closer look. Now, there are obviously other magicians out there who are succeeding, who are seeing consistent full houses and lots of success. So what exactly are they doing that Bob isn't? To find out, we can take a closer look at some of the reviews that they're getting from their audience members. Bob's tricks are good, which you'd think would be the deciding factor in who has more success. But if you look at what audience members are saying, it's things like, oh my God, he's so funny. Oh my God, she really engages the audience. Wow, I can hear them loud and clear since the auditorium amplifies their voice. Overall, it looks like other magicians are providing a feast for the senses, while Bob is working out of a cramped auditorium and not necessarily acting as charismatically as he could be. Now he knows what he needs to change to succeed. Bam, problem solved. It's just like magic, but it's business. Now, the second skill that I wanted to talk about, one that's incredibly important in our world today, is communication. This is actually where a lot of people get tripped up in their career or their personal lives. Their belief that if they just bring the skills and or the paycheck, everything should be okay. They can't communicate. They can't manage people. Although some people believe that or wish that this wasn't the case, we live in a society and it's really important that we act accordingly. Humans are, by nature, social beings. We need relationships. That's what our entire civilization was built off of. However, these relationships don't always go smoothly because we're flawed beings that tend to focus on our own thoughts and feelings to the detriment of everyone around us. Communication is necessary to maintain these relationships, whether that's expressions of care, apologies, or even nonverbal communication. It's also incredibly important to negotiation and establishing your place in society. This is where business comes in, because communication is an essential skill when you want to do things like make deals, form partnerships, hire employees, go through with mergers, and so much more. It's also very useful on an individual level when you want to do things like collaborating with other people or coming to decisions that everyone can agree on. So you guys have met Bob. I want to introduce you to his nephew, who's also named Bob. Bob is in his first year of college with 2 roommates, and by and large, the entire roommate situation seems to be going smoothly. There's just one problem. One of his roommates absolutely refuses to do the dishes. Bob doesn't really want to say anything because he thinks that would make the situation awkward and just make it all worse, but he knows that if he doesn't do something about the problem, his resentment will just fester and grow until it explodes and definitively makes the situation worse. So this is where Bob's communication skills come into play. He has to come up with a delicate yet effective way to communicate to his roommate that he needs to do those dishes. Using his knowledge of human nature, Bob comes up with 3 potential plans, one of which he's sure his roommate will be amenable to. First, he knows that his roommate's goal is to avoid the chore of doing the dishes, so he offers up a simple trade. He will do the dishes, and his roommate can do something else. He also thinks that there's a lot of potential benefit that could be gotten from a more objective, tangible way of tracking exactly who will do what chore, so he offers to work with his roommate to create a chore schedule. Now, the third option is the nuclear option, the action that cannot be ignored. He says he'll put his roommate's belongings in the yard if he doesn't do the dishes. Now, it may not be communicated in the ideal fashion, but it is being communicated instead of letting the resentment fester and grow like Bob was afraid of earlier. Look at him using his communication skills to better his environment. Good for Bob. Now, the third skill that I wanted to talk about today, awareness, is a little bit strange because it's so abstract and confusing. What even is awareness? Is it like something to do with meditation? Am I breaking out the essential oils right now? Not exactly. Awareness is a little different. It involves paying attention to your surroundings and using that information as a factor when making your choices and work decisions. This is incredibly important in business. For example, if you're starting a business during an economic downturn, you're going to make different decisions than if you were starting one during a time of prosperity. You might choose to focus on necessities rather than luxury goods. Another example, if your business is part of an incredibly competitive market, you will make different pricing and branding decisions than if you had a monopoly over the entire area. But this all seems so high level that it may seem like only executives will ever have to deal with any of it. As for awareness on a personal scale, isn't that easy? You see a truck coming, you get out of its way. You see that colleges want good grades, you do well in school. But in truth, humans could do with a heck of a lot more awareness. Have you ever noticed that the people around you have a tendency to say the word I all the time? That's because we're naturally self-focused. We're the center of our own thoughts and we see everything in relation to ourselves. This isn't ideal for understanding other people effectively because we often unknowingly force our thoughts and feelings on other people because we just can't conceive of an inner world that's different from ours. With awareness, though, that can change. You guys have met Bob, and you guys have met his nephew, Bob. So I wanted to introduce you to our third friend today, Oliver Henry Lawrence Lafayette Jr. Oliver Henry Lawrence Lafayette Jr. is at work right now, and he's standing in line at his work cafeteria, incredibly hungry. He's ready to grab food and just chow down on whatever they have. Just as he's getting to the beginning of the line, he notices a woman cut in front of him. Now, Oliver Henry John Lafayette Jr. is super mad. He is about to go up there and give that woman a piece of his mind. But then he stops and he pays a little attention. It looks like the woman is pale. Her face is flushed and she's sweating profusely. Who knows what's going on here? Maybe she's diabetic and her blood sugar is running low and she needs an emergency snack as a pick-me-up. Maybe she needs to quickly grab some kind of a utensil to squash a cockroach she saw on her desk. Maybe she's just a jerk. Oliver Henry Lawrence Lafayette Jr. was mad at first, but do you see how that anger turns to understanding with a little bit of awareness? When you're in your bubble, everything can seem like a blight towards you, but when you take a step out and just pay attention, you can see that there's a reason for every action. We as a whole could use a lot of awareness. We're messing up our environment for generations to come. There are problems that billions of people on the earth are facing that we're not doing anything about because they don't affect us personally. These kinds of problems and the awareness of these kinds of things goes beyond just the economy or the market. It's important for communities and even the world. I wanted to end this talk by telling you a little bit of personal reflection. The reason I wrote this in the first place was because I wanted to convince people that business is actually pretty useful as a major. It's true that a lot of the skills that I talked about today, you would learn directly in your classes if you were to pursue the business field. For example, problem solving through case studies, communication through marketing, and awareness through economy and global market studies. You'd also learn a lot of other skills, like financial management, self-promotion, dealing with coworkers, all skills that are incredibly relevant to your personal life as well. Obviously, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, since I am in high school and I haven't gone to college yet. But this is where I see the value in business. This is why I like business. And I hope that in the future, more people, maybe even you, will consider it as a viable career option and maybe even decide to pursue business in college. Thank you.